everyone is a potential victim. But the good news is that everyone is a potential solution. Sensitize the masses, sanitize, keep a social distance and quarantine. The coronavirus is sweeping over mankind. Everybody must be alert. It's a global pandemic we can never take for granted. Kila mtu must be alert. It's a matter of life we can never take for granted. Discipline and personal hygiene, and make sure you regularly wash your hands. Keep a distance from everyone. Report anything like a symptom. Serious fever is a symptom. Dry cough is a symptom. Walk with Kampala is a symptom. It's the ice and flu is a symptom. Everybody must be alive.
Welcome to the stream, Bobi Wine. Bobi Wine is a Ugandan MP. He's an activist. He's a politician, and he's here with us in the stream. Also joined by Dr. Ahmed Ogwell, who is Deputy Director of CDC Africa. Doctor, welcome. Bobi, welcome. We're going to be talking about coronavirus in Uganda.
Thank you guys for having us.
We're going to be talking about Bobi's song, Coronavirus Alert, that you just heard there, and also doing a little bit of politics later on in the show. Bobi, let's get you to work straight away. Welcome, Doctor. Nice to have you. Asma asked on Twitter, what inspired you? What inspired the Coronavirus Alert song? Bobi, go ahead.
Well, I'll say fear, panic, responsibility. It's many things that inspired myself and my brother Nubian to sing this song. But most importantly, I noticed that the people from my side of the world, myself inclusive, we had not taken the coronavirus scare as serious as we should have taken it in the first place. It was until myself and my friends actually started seeing people die in crazy numbers in Italy and other places, and yet these places have a massively developed healthcare system. So I and my friends imagined what kind of mess it would be if the coronavirus pandemic hit Africa or Uganda in particular. And because we know that music is a very powerful weapon of mass sensitization, we decided to do our part, because we know in our case prevention is much more better and safer than cure. And so we use music to reach out to the masses, to reach out to humanity, and we're glad we were able to, in a very short time, communicate musically.
Dr. Ahmed, let me bring you into the conversation. I'm just looking here on the UNESCO page, #Don'tGoViral. And this whole idea, this whole campaign is to get artists, to get musicians to share the message about what you need to do to prepare for the coronavirus, and get that message out to people who may not be watching the news, may not be listening to the radio, or may not be listening to the news on the radio. Dr. Ahmed, how impactful can be a song like Coronavirus Alert?
Thank you for having me, Femi. Artists generally are a very key part of messaging to members of the public, because they break down messages into easier to understand for the public sort of sound bites. As scientists, as public health professionals, we tend to speak sometimes in jargon and heavy science terms. And so artists of all shades are a very key part of passing on messages to the public in a way that they understand, that they can easily be able to translate into their daily lives. So artists are a key part of this particular response to coronavirus?
Bobi, I remember when coronavirus first came out, and I watched it, and you were inundated with responses from it, coronavirus alert. Since morning, we have received numerous requests, you wrote on Twitter, for written authorization to play this song on TVs and radio stations. Go ahead, use it. It's not ours anymore, but for the world. And there have been so many people who've been actually, you made it open source. You can go on a wiki page, you can find the track, you can find the backing track, you can find the words. And little kids are actually being you, Bobi Wine, and also Nubian Lee as well, who features in the song as well. Let me give the audience just a little hint of what has been happening and what you started.
Bad news is everyone that is a potential victim. But the good news is everyone that is a potential solution. Sensitize the masses to sensitize. Keep a social distance on quarantine. The coronavirus is sweeping all the mankind. Everybody must be alert to the global pandemic and never take for granted.
So, Bobi, you started that, and so many people are actually being inspired by this song. Do you feel that the message that you're giving there is a public health message as well? Did you study things like the symptoms and put them into the song? What was your plan when you put that song together?
Well, first of all, my inspiration musically comes from people like Fela Kuti, and one time said music in times of need should not only be used for entertainment, but for revolution and for education. And that explains why I, for the last 10 years, call my music edutainment. I know that many times very serious terminologies tend to bore people. But again, through entertainment, noble messages can be passed to all ages and to all classes. I'm only glad that even children are taking it on. And yes, I was very deliberate targeting an audience, because I know that the corona scare is the first time where everybody, regardless of age or gender, is a potential victim, and yes, a potential solution. I'm only glad that people, including children, took it on, and that explains why I personally take it out as my own contribution as Nubian Lee and myself contribution to humanity, and yes, opened it to anybody to edit it, to remix it, use it, because it was our humble contribution. I'm just glad that people are taking it on, and yes, I want to encourage fellow artists and creatives all over. Don't be limited. Let us not be limited, because the gifts that we get from God are supposed to be for the benefit of humanity. So while I play my part, you could play your part, remix it even better. Because guess what? I like the version of the children even more than my own version.
Dr. Ahmed, let me share with our audience some of the tweets that you've been sending out. This is African Union member states reporting COVID-19 cases. And I'm just going to scroll down. This is at the end of the weekend, looking for Uganda here. Good job, I know my flags of Africa. 116 reported cases. Does that mean that Uganda is leading the African continent in terms of how they're coping with COVID-19? Or is this a question of testing and not having enough tests out there? Should we look at that figure and think, wow, Uganda's doing well?
Well, I must say that...
I'm going to ask Bobi, I'm going to ask Dr. Ahmed first, and you can give me a second. Dr. Ahmed,
yes,
go ahead.
Yes,
the issue around numbers is one that we must treat with a lot of care. Having many cases is not necessarily success, and having few cases is also not necessarily success. If we look at the African continent, there are things that we've done very well, and one of them is starting early. When the virus started spreading from China into other parts of the world, African countries came together and quickly implemented very good, effective public health measures. And this saw, for example, screening at points of entry, and allowed for governments to be able to pick out cases that could have been exposed to this virus from wherever they were coming. The numbers as we see them today, I mean, we have over 60,000 cases now in Africa, over 2,000 deaths, tell us that we are still vulnerable to transmission within the country, and we need to do more to be able to pick out those who are infected, quarantine those who we suspect, and those who actually have the virus, we isolate them. This way we stop the transmission into the rest of the community. So when you look at those numbers, we need to be careful, because those numbers tell the story that a country has the testing capacity, a country has enhanced surveillance, they can be able to pick out who is exposed, and having low numbers is not necessarily good, and having high numbers is not necessarily bad. It's all an issue of, are you picking the real cases? And when you do, and you are able to isolate them, then you stop the transmission. This is, I think, the key thing to look at, and not necessarily just the numbers. But Uganda has relatively lower numbers than other countries in the sub-region. And this, we can say, is a good thing, because Uganda started early. They looked at public health measures, they implemented them, and the numbers speak for themselves.
If I may just jump in here, and Bobi, I'm going to put this tweet to you, Bobi. This is from Ivan. The president was very quick, this is President Museveni, was very quick to respond to the situation by putting down the lockdown. But as he eases the lockdown, a lot of issues were not clarified, like letting car garages go to work, while the private cars are not allowed to move. This issue of lockdown, I'm seeing a lot of tweets about this. People are really concerned that they're not going to be able to manage if they can't move around and earn a living. Bobi, as a politician in Uganda, what do you say to them?
Thank you very much. I want to thank Dr. Ahmed for that answer. It was very representative of me as well. Well, indeed, I must thank the government for responding very quickly, and indeed thank the Ugandans who have been very responsive, and they played a very big role. About the lockdown, much as it was a good step to combat the spread of the COVID-19, it was just the restriction. We needed much more than the restrictions. We needed to put measures to help our people, well knowing that the majority of our population is living on less than $1 a day, and yet many of them work for a daily meal. Now, for the last more than 39 days of lockdown, many people are struggling to find a daily meal. We had challenges like a high mortality rate, and yes, other challenges that we think would have been better addressed if we had measures. So while we are fighting the coronavirus, our people are dying of hunger and other diseases and other causes that are associated with the lockdown. So if I was President Museveni, which I am not, I think it would be very important measures that would, make life affordable and make life moving forward by the people of Uganda.
President Museveni is coming out quite a bit on YouTube, and I'll go to a couple of those comments in just a moment. But something did strike me in terms of the gusto with which he embraced some of the public health advice about not going out, lockdown, exercising at home. And there was a humorous moment where the president actually showed the citizens of Uganda how you too can exercise at home. Have a look at this.
Thank you very much. President Museveni came out to exercise, which was very good entertainment for the people of Uganda. But for the head of state, I think we need more than just entertainment. It needs to be connected and relevant to the people, considering that we have a population that lives mainly in the ghettos. The president was advising people against exercising from public places, against jogging on the road, which I partially agree with him, but I would rather we give examples to people that are relevant to their daily life. Indeed, there was a joke on social media. There were various jokes on the social media comparing the president's luxurious and spacious offices to the living conditions of the people who are living in squashed up rooms and have no area to exercise. So while we give guidance to the people, it should be relating to their realities, the realities that they live through every day.
All right. Dr. Ahmed, I'm just looking here at the key policy directives from May the 4th and details about markets and airports and borders. This is all coming from the Ministry of Health. So a very comprehensive policy there in terms of how Uganda is going to manage coronavirus. I'm wondering, does this connect to Uganda already knowing how to deal with a contagious outbreak? Does that knowledge help Uganda?
I think what's important here is that as Africa CDC, Africa Union, we have provided guidance to member states on what needs to be done at what stage of the outbreak. And most of the countries have been following this guidance quite well. And the results are clear that there's quite a bit of success in as far as implementing the guidance is concerned. In the case of Uganda, if you look at the guidance that has been coming from the government, it has been very much in line with public health policy, public health science around managing outbreaks, and this has resulted in numbers of those who are infected being identified quickly, and therefore isolation being effected to limit the spread within the country. So when a country understands public health science, what needs to be done at what stage of the outbreak, the results are always good. If you blink, then it hits you, and it hits you hard, because the virus spreads very, very fast. So starting early is key, something that we did very well in Africa. You start early, you place measures that are effective, they are known to work, and you follow that up with information to the public that they are really the vaccine. The public are the vaccine. If the public is disciplined and follow the measures correctly, then the spread is limited. If the public is disciplined and they are not able to limit transmission from person to person, then you find the numbers growing quite rapidly.
Right. Dr. Ahmed, there is something that I want to end on before I thank you for being on the stream, and that was your idea of a vaccine already being with us. It was a sentence, a line that was so great. I want you to repeat it for our audience before I say goodbye. Go ahead.
We are the vaccine. Really, this is the message. Because if we don't do the right things, then we will not be able to stop the virus from spreading. If we do the right thing, then we will be able to stop the virus from spreading in the community. So we
Dr. Ahmed Ogwell, I'm going to leave it. Leave when you're on top there. Thank you so much. The vaccine is us. It's how we behave. Dr. Ahmed Ogwell is Deputy Director of Africa CDC. Thank you, Dr. Ahmed, for joining us today. Appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.
All right. So many comments and questions. I want to bring in Safina. Safina appreciated the coronavirus alert song, Bobi, and then she talked about, well, I'll let her tell you what was on her mind. Let's have a listen to Safina.
Bobi Wine has inspired a lot of us to get involved in the governance of our country. His COVID song has been translated into different languages, both in Uganda and all over Africa. He'll win the election, but there's going to be a lot of work that we are going to have to do as a movement for that to happen.
Bobi, in the middle of a coronavirus crisis for the whole of the African continent, for the world, can you even be focused on what may happen in 2021, as you already declared that you're going to run for president?
Yeah, thank you very much. I've declared that I'll be running for president, but I must also add that we are having a constant effort of bringing all forces of change together, so that this is not just about me or the movement I lead, but it should be about all Ugandans that want a better country. For a long time, we have been talking about healthcare, and indeed among the 5 things that we take so serious is healthcare. And this situation has even ignited it the more. For a long time, we've been calling upon the authorities in Uganda and indeed in many countries of Africa to improve healthcare system. Unfortunately, the political class has always been flying abroad to developed countries for their healthcare.
Bobby, I mean, you make a very good point. There are Bobby, if I may, there's so many people on YouTube who are being galvanized by what is happening with lockdown in Uganda. Let me just ask you to respond to some of them. Odoi Emma says, so far the Ugandan government has done well in containing the COVID-19, but more needs to be done, especially in the welfare of the citizens. More people need to be provided with relief like food. And then let me also take another one here, which is from Veronica. Lockdown would be okay if the government had really put in place measures for simplifying citizens' lives. So there is pushback here to the lockdown, not just in Uganda, but all over the world. But what can you say, as a politician, what are you able to do to change that?
Right now, and not actually only right now, but we've always been saying that it should not be only the work of the politicians. Our effort now, our success, or if I should call it success, our ability to have low numbers, to have been at a certain pedestal in fighting the COVID-19 pandemic is not only accredited to the politicians, but to the people as well. So it has been every one of us, the citizens and the politicians, and the same way it will work.
All right, we lost Bobi Wine for just a moment. Let me share with you some of the incredible comments and suggestions that you're having and you wanted to put to him so we understand what is going on with the coronavirus situation in Uganda. Mwanja Isma here. What is your plan on human rights violation in Uganda? Corruption, the health sector, and the education system as president of Uganda. That's a mission 2021. So that's a bigger question. That's a larger question. That takes us, Bobby, beyond coronavirus to the idea, and this has come up quite a lot, human rights violations, corruption, improving the health sector. You have a list right here of things to do. What is your mandate? What are you promising? Yeah. What are you promising?
Yeah, you see, while we are fighting the COVID-19 pandemic, we are looking far ahead of it, and yes, far before it. Uganda has been facing human rights violations. As we speak right now, my fellow member of parliament, the Honorable Francis Zake, who represents Amitiana, is nursing wounds of torture because he has been tortured by the security operatives simply because he gave out food relief to his constituents against the president's order. You see, we have a president that is a dictator and is milking the coronavirus pandemic to get political mileage, to settle scores with the opposition. Right now, nobody else in Uganda is allowed to extend food aid to their neighbor, even if it's your neighbor. And yet, our people are so poor, they need help. So, because it's a military dictatorship, President Museveni has gotten an opportunity to crack down on the opposition and, yes, to abuse rights in the name of fighting the coronavirus, in the name of controlling the spread of the coronavirus.
Okay, if you're joining the stream, this is Bobi Wine. He is a member of parliament for Uganda. He is a politician, a musician, and an activist, as you can hear right there. One of the things that the people have been complaining about right now is lockdown, how uncomfortable lockdown is. And there is something that you have pledged to do for people immediately. It's not food aid. It's not going out and helping them ease their lockdown stress, but you are going to be doing and put together a concert. Why did you do that, Bobby? And this is in a sentence, because we're right at the end of the show. Why is the concert important?
Well, we're doing a concert because music is a healing. Music soothes, the mind and soul. Our people are stressed. Right now, we have women that are carrying themselves and their children to the police stations demanding to be arrested because they are so hungry. They would rather feed on the prisoners' food and survive other than dying in their own houses. So what
it's shocking how fast the show goes. We're right at the end of the show. It's shocking how fast the show goes. Thank you so much for joining us. I will tell you that you can see Bobi Wine's concert on his Facebook page. in all of its glory. Thank you so much for being part of the stream today, Bobi Wine.
Thank you.
Really
Welcome to the show, World, and thank you, Al Jazeera, for having me. Keep it on the stream.
All right. Thank you, Bobi Wine.
Cheers.
Thanks for watching, everybody. Take care.
Thank you very much. Enjoy the show.